Today we celebrate the third Sunday of Advent, Sunday that we know in the Catholic Church as Gaudete Sunday. Gaudete in Latin, which means rejoice. We are invited to rejoice. I'm going to read, and that comes from the entrance antiphon. I'm going to read it again. Actually, to read it, because I didn't read that before. Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I say rejoice. Rejoice. We have to rejoice. Why? Because Jesus Christ is coming. The Lord is near, St. Paul says. Jesus Christ is close. He's near. He's coming. And that's why it's like we pause a little bit and we are not wearing, Deacon and I, the purple color. We are wearing rose, the rose color, not pink, rose. And we have the third candle, which is the rose candle, is lit because it's the third Sunday. We are closing to the celebration of Christmas, the celebration of the coming of Jesus Christ. So we have to rejoice. Please rejoice during this day and the entire week. Jesus is close. So now, let us see what the Gospel says about this coming of Jesus Christ. How we have to get ready maybe for that coming, and what is going to happen, especially what is going to happen and what happens when Jesus Christ comes to our lives. Today's readings, especially the first reading and the Gospel, are about that. What happens when Jesus Christ comes into our lives? So let us try to answer that question with the Gospel. I'm going to mention something about the first reading after that, and I'm going to come back to the Gospel at the end of the homily. Okay? So, St. John the Baptist, he is in prison and he's wondering, this man, Jesus Christ, is really the Messiah? The Gospel doesn't use that word, Messiah. I'm going to read how the Gospel calls Jesus Christ. Are you the one who is to come? That's the question that the disciples of John the Baptist are asking Jesus Christ. Are you the one who is to come? Which is the same thing, the Messiah. And Jesus Christ, and I think we all agree, Jesus Christ is a great theologian. Do we agree? Yeah. I was saying to the people last night that I would like to be able to go and listen to Jesus Christ in a theological talk. I have many questions to ask to him. But interestingly, he doesn't answer that question in a theological way. He doesn't give a speech, a theological speech from here. He just says to the disciples, go and tell John the Baptist what is happening. That's another way to say what the Gospel says. Tell John the Baptist what you are seeing and hearing, what is happening. And tell John the Baptist that something is happening. And he's going to understand that I am the one who is to come, that I am the Messiah. Look around. Why? Again, this is what I was saying, we are going to answer the question, what happens when Jesus Christ, when God comes into our lives? And this is what Jesus Christ is saying. I am here. I am God. I am the Emmanuel, as we were singing at the beginning of the Mass, the entrance song, Emmanuel, God among us. I am God among us, and because of that, something is happening. Things cannot stay the same way. Something is happening. And you go and tell John the Baptist that something is happening. Now, I go to the first reading because the image is beautiful. The prophet Isaiah is using an image to describe what happens when God comes into one place, into our lives. And the image is very simple. The desert is going to bloom. Deserts bloom, and everything. A desert is a place that doesn't have any life. And if we say that the desert blooms, it means that all of a sudden the desert gives life. And the best, when I read that, and when I was preparing the homily, the image that came into my mind, that's an image, but I had another image, is I like to see, and I know that you have seen also those shows, especially the National Geographic shows about Africa. There are places that are like deserts. And all of a sudden you see these black clouds coming. It's going to rain. Raining and raining and raining. And all of a sudden you start seeing green, life. Have you seen those? And this, the expression in English is the time lapse. The camera is there focusing the same place, and you can see how the process happens for us in not even minutes, in seconds. Everything, there is a transformation of that ground. And all of a sudden we see green animals, we see life. That's what the prophet Isaiah is saying that is going to happen when God comes. There is a transformation. And there is a passing from no life to life. And that's why we have to rejoice. That is going to happen when Jesus Christ comes into our lives. Now, I'm coming back to the gospel. I said, gospel, first reading, gospel. What Jesus Christ says to John the Baptist, go and tell John the Baptist, to the disciples of John the Baptist, go and tell John the Baptist what you are seeing. We have to interpret that in a spiritual way. So I'm going to try to do it. He says, the blind regain their sight. The lame walk. Lepers are cleansed. The deaf hear. The dead are raised. That's what they can see. The blind regain their sight. We have to interpret that in a spiritual way. When the gospel speaks about blindness, the gospel speaks especially about the spiritual blindness. We all can see here in a physical way, but many of us and many of our people, our society, are blind. They cannot see the spiritual things. They cannot get directions in their spiritual life. And Christmas season is a season to recognize our spiritual blindness, to recognize especially that we need the light of Jesus Christ to be able to get directions in our world, not to be lost. If we don't want to be lost, we have to go to Jesus Christ and get his light and get directions from him. Wednesday, a couple invited me to go to dinner, and I went. It was 6 p.m. Now 6 p.m. is like it's dark, huh? And I use the Google Maps in my iPhone, and I don't know why it's not working. I was unable to go to use it. So I went to Waze. This is another app. It said there, no GPS connection. I have no idea why. So I went to Apple has an app too, a GPS. So I went to that, it didn't work either. So I was relying in what I was able to see, and I couldn't see a lot. So I was trying to read the small signs for the names of the streets. Thank you very much, the signs. I couldn't. It took me, I don't know how long to go to that house, but I was able to go there. The same thing can happen in our spiritual life if we don't have the GPS, Jesus Christ. We are going to be lost. We need him to be able to get directions in our life. And that's the first thing that has to be transformed. Without Jesus Christ, we are going to walk in the darkness. With Jesus Christ, we are going to have directions, and we go straight where we want to go. He's going to give us those directions. The second thing that the gospel says, Jesus Christ says, the deaf hear. Actually, that's the third one, but I want to talk about that in the second place. The deaf hear. Deafness. Spiritual deafness. And the best image that I use when I speak about that is the old radios. Those who are like me, more older than 20, understand that? The old radios that we used to turn the dial. Dial. Remember that we were not in the right place to listen to that radio station. What happened? Static. This is what you call it in English, huh? I remember that was annoying. If you are not in the right place, you are not going to be able to hear anything, to listen to anything. Just, okay, the same thing happens in our spiritual life. We can be deaf. In a spiritual life, again, we have to be in tune to get the voice of Jesus Christ. That static is the noise that we have, our busyness of this life, the business that we have. So we are sometimes too immersed in that we forget to be in tune and listen to Jesus Christ. Advent season and Christmas season is a season to be in tune and not have that static and be able to listen to God. Many people can listen properly, but not to God. They are very good in listening to different things, but not to God. They are deaf when it comes to listen to God. How important is to be in tune to be able to listen to God? The third one, which is the second one in the gospel, is the lame walk. The lame. Lameness, spiritual lameness. How we can interpret that? In the Gospel of St. Luke, do you remember, don't answer that, but do you remember what happens right after the archangel Gabriel announces to the Virgin Mary that she is going to be the mother of Jesus Christ? Do you remember? Right after that, you read in the Gospel that the Virgin Mary went to visit Elizabeth, her cousin. And the Gospel doesn't say something like, she was like, I have to go there. No, the Gospel said that she went in haste. In haste. I don't know how to say in haste with a gesture, but in haste. It was with energy. She wasn't lazy. So, spiritual lameness, we can interpret that as laziness, a spiritual laziness. We suffer a lot of that. Actually, today is a very lazy day for me. I don't know how to say that. I was in the Air Force saying mess. Now I have to come back, say mess here, so I'm a little bit, I don't want. We all suffer of that. We all have that temptation to say, today is too cold, maybe. When it's too cold, I don't want to go to mess. It's too cold. It's better to be in my bed. When it's too hot, I don't want to go to mess. I want to go to the beach, for example. We can be lazy sometimes. And Christmas time is a time to recognize that and try to be people who really have the zeal and the desire to meet Jesus Christ. lameness. Spiritual lameness. And the last one, the fourth one and last one, the dead are raised. Sometimes, and this is the actually in the spiritual life, we talk about mortal sins. Those sins that cut our relationship with God completely. So the relationship with God can be seen as in terms of life and death. When we have Jesus Christ in our life, we are alive. When we don't have him, we are dead. And let me tell you, there are many walking deads. Many. People who are just walking. But in the spiritual level, they are completely dead. We are sometimes like that. So Christmas time is a time to work very hard in our intimate relationship with God. And allow God to change that into life. To have a very strong, deep relationship with God. So let us pray today and let us ask God that we may be able to have spiritual sight. Let us ask God that he may give us the light to be able to see completely what he wants from us in this life. Second, let us ask God the spiritual hearing to be able to listen to him, to be in tune with him, to be able to understand his word and act upon it, as the gospel says. Third, let us ask God the grace to be people who really work to get rid of our laziness, our spiritual laziness, and to have zeal to work for him every day. And fourth, let us ask God to be able to work for a very deep, strong relationship with him, to have life, the life that comes from him. Please stand. I believe in one God, the Father,